The Sticks and Picks Lacrosse play until the whistle segment. Officials are a huge part of the game. Without the officials, the game wouldn't exist. These segments are for lacrosse fans to get a perspective from the officials and how hard it can really be at times during the game to make the right calls, respecting the officials and reminding fans that they are human too. Lacrosse fans, today we have a special guest on with us. Please welcome Ontario lacrosse official Shane Withers. Shane, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me here, Will.
Yeah, it's exciting. So can you tell the fans which leagues you've been in official in the last few years?
Yeah, I've done a major game, done a bunch of junior A, junior B, junior C. Senior B is my favorite league to be in, so I do quite a bit of that. Working my way into trying to get onto the NLL, so hopefully that comes up in the near future as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty cool goal to strive for. So you've obviously been around in the Ontario officiating game for a long time. So why did you become a lacrosse referee?
I was in the middle of playing, and summer was coming up, and it was getting older. Mom had said to me that Steve Clancy, he was the referee in chief in Peterborough at the time, that he was looking for officials, and it wouldn't be a bad way to make some money, put some money in my pocket. And I went to Whitby, took the clinic, stood outside. It was raining. It was and I thought, well, what a wonderful first experience. I get soaked waiting to get inside of Henry Street High School. And so we took the course, come back to Peterborough, did my first game, scared, and no idea what I was in for. But as a player, it just kind of flowed. You knew what the players were after. You knew kind of what calls you wanted to make, what you didn't want to make, kind of help the game go on. It just kind of was just easy to kind of amalgamate into that side of lacrosse.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially being a former player and kind of learning the game as a player, and you kind of learn how to officiate the game in a way the players play the game. And I think it certainly helps out, and it's awesome to have refs that are former players and they know the game so well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Playing, especially as a defender, you can understand why guys who are playing defense, they're just trying to get the ball, they're just trying to get off. 9 times out of 10, not trying to commit a penalty. You get the few knobheads out there who just going out there to try and break a guy's arm or crotchet a guy in the face, and you understand that guy's got to go. But most guys are just out there to try and play defense. So you try and give them a bit of a break and be a little lenient. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because then the other team feels like, well, you're a little lenient towards them, I'll be a little lenient towards me.
yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure it's difficult as a referee as well to kind of make those judgment calls if you didn't really play the game growing up. But being a former player, I think it's probably a little bit easier for you to understand where a guy's just trying to get the ball or a guy's trying to injure a player. So I think it's a little easier for you to kind of make that judgment call there.
Absolutely.
So what's your favorite part about being a lacrosse referee?
Well, I knew that after junior, my game was kind of over with. I had a tryout with the Rock, but I knew the game was going in a different direction. I was just a big dummy who stood in the back end and played defense, and they wanted guys who could run up and down the floor and score, and that definitely wasn't my game. So being able to still be on the floor right in the middle of the action was probably the best thing that could have happened, because without, after junior, and there was really no bites to go to the MSL, the pro. Senior B wasn't what it was now. I would have just went home and done nothing. So being able to stay involved, reffing all the time has definitely been my favorite thing. You're right on the floor all the time with the guys, and you try not to influence a game, but you can get involved in some games they're barn burners, or you can get involved in some games where it's 21-2, and you're like, oh my god, this is brutal. But there are some aspects where it's like, this is pretty great. I'm really happy that I'm out here with it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's probably the easiest and best way to stay involved in the game other than coaching. And but there are some down parts to being a referee as well. So what would be your least favorite part?
Well, it's just, the players get it, and sometimes the coaches don't. And you get a lot of coaches on the bench who get so fired up that they just don't seem to understand why you're calling a penalty a certain way, or why the game is going in a certain direction, and they feel like it's all your fault when the game goes off the rails. And it's like, well, man, like I didn't cross check that kid in the throat and put your guy like and put the guy out or put your team down for 10 minutes. Like I didn't do that. Like I didn't slash the guy. I didn't fight the guy. Like I didn't run the goalie. Like why are you yelling at me and not yelling at the other team? Like if I didn't call the penalty and it was definitely need for one, like I understand getting upset, but like if your team's getting absolutely pumped, it's not my fault that your team can't stop the ball. You guys can't stop the play. Like I think that's it there. It's like, man, like put some onus on your team, not so much on the refs.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I've been a player, a coach, and an official. I'm only 25 years old, and I think being an official, like the thing you realize the most is how some coaches are just so like ball focused and they don't understand what's going on like in other aspects of the play, or they don't see a lot of things and they just kind of blame the refs for their team's mistakes. And it's got to be frustrating being a ref at such a high level. And speaking about players and coaches, who would you say is the best player that you've ever refed in your opinion, and why?
Um, I don't know about refing, just because a lot of the guys who are who are the greats right now, I played with, so I never really got to ref a lot of those guys. I played with John Tavares before he decided that hockey was going to be the end, and that guy was incredible as a lacrosse player when he played for Oakville, and guys like Dane Smith and Cody Jamieson and all those guys. Like I don't know many of the junior A players that are coming through. Dyson Williams is pretty incredible for Whippy. That guy has a real bright future ahead of him. Um, but yeah, I played with more of the guys who are in the leagues right now, especially in the NLL. So if anything, as a not so much as an official, but as a player, but John Tavares, being 2 years younger than us at summer games, led summer games in scoring by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, that's crazy, and he's become a pretty good National Hockey League player today. And just like that, lacrosse and hockey, it goes so well together. But I mean, you've certainly played with a lot of good players. What about coaches? Have you ever had like a coach that you've really enjoyed to be an official? He's always respectful, or just someone who you think coaches the game very well?
Yeah, Glenn Clark is really good behind the bench. Brad MacArthur, surprisingly, is really understands what you're trying to do out on the floor. Sometimes he can get a bit over the top, um, but he understands. Just a quick explanation. This is why this has happened this way, and he kind of looks at you like, okay, why? Oh no, I get it. And then the game flows on, and you just kind of look after them a little bit. We had to kind of calm things down. Um, but I'd say Brad, and I wouldn't say that very often. I probably wouldn't even tell Brad that, but he's probably been a coach that I've had the least amount of issues with over the years.
Yeah, I've had Brad as firsthand experience. He was my coach with the Green Gales lacrosse team, and I mean, he always encouraged respecting the officials. That was like his biggest rule. Like he's the only one, captains and the coach is the only one allowed to talk to the officials. And I think that's something where all teams should kind of get involved with, and not having all your players and all the coaching staff yelling at the bench. And I just think it would be a lot easier for the officials and just make it for a more smooth game for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. When you had 20 guys yelling at you from the bench, I wanted the last thing I want to do is come and talk to the bench, because who in their right mind wants to get yelled at by 22 players, coaches, the training staff, and the fans who are behind the bench? So if you have a good coach who, like you said, implements that, him and the captain's the only people who talk to the ref, I find it's a lot easier to go over and just have a calm, quick conversation about where the game's headed or why the penalty was called that way. And they'll say, well, you got to look out for that for us. And absolutely, no problem, I can do that for you. If it's there, I'll call it. If it's not, then don't be screaming at me every single time a chop comes or a cross check that it's got to be a penalty. And guys like Brad have been good enough to understand, with the penalties there, it's going to be called. If it's not, you're going to hear about it. But he doesn't do it to the point where it's like, oh my God, you got to leave the building now. You're overbearing and just too much.
Yeah, I think Brad, as an example, he kind of remembers that an official, you guys are still humans as well. And I think some coaches that I've witnessed as a referee, as a player, or as a coach, like I've just seen them go off on the officials. And at the end of the day, you guys are humans, and it's just I think people in the game of lacrosse need to remember that, and it would definitely help out the numbers in the officials and definitely grow the game more and try to increase our numbers so we have more officials.
Well, that's the biggest thing is that a lot of young kids who go out there, it's like they have no bearing on the game whatsoever. They don't care who wins. They don't have friends on the team, and if they did, they would know that they'd never get away with calling the game one-sided. I don't care who wins a game. If we go to a national championship, and I've reffed the Green Gales all year, and they're playing some other team from out of the province. I don't care if the Gales win. I'm not getting a medal. So, to go out there, we call the game the best for our ability, but like, you get a guy who says, I'm gonna fight you in the parking lot. Or, it's like, man, like I don't want to fight you in the parking lot. Or, if a game goes sideways, like that might stick with a guy afterwards because, you think to yourself, like, what could I have done differently? And I don't need a coach telling me all the things that he feels I did wrong. Well, man, how about I tell you all the things that you may have done wrong on the floor? Like your player missed a break, like 3 breakaways. You guys couldn't catch the ball. Your goalie couldn't stop a beach ball. Like those are things I wouldn't say to a coach. So how about don't say that to us, and then you'll find that you won't have the same referees every game because guys just quit.
Yeah, exactly. It's always nice to have more referees, and growing the official part of the game is something that I think lacrosse in general needs to be better at. And then you spoke about reffing against a team all year and then playing a team from a different environment. What in your experience would be your favorite arena to officiate in, and why?
Mimico is quite wild to referee, and the place is packed. I haven't done a playoff game in there. I've went to a game there where the guy, they've been in the middle of playing Brampton, and it's like what an environment all the time. The fans are nuts. They love that team. You don't find that in very many places. Six Nations sometimes is that if they go deep, they'll find that. But Mimico is like you ever want like a game 7 atmosphere, that's the place to go.
Yeah, it's Mimico is definitely one of the hotbeds for lacrosse in Ontario. What would be the least favorite arena to officiate in Ontario, and why?
Brampton. It's so hot. And there's one way on the floor. Both teams are there. The barn is older than you and I. Like it's 100 years old, and I find it's just not a fun environment to be in. Fans are on top of you. They're almost pretty well over the glass. And like you said, you're always looking at problems because they enter the floor down behind the net. There's no divider. There's no boards. There's no meshing or of any kind. So you're always on the lookout for the fact that one guy says something stupid, and now you're gonna have a brawl.
Yeah, no, for sure. Brampton it's an old barn. It's probably one of the oldest lacrosse facilities in Canada, and it's definitely a pretty cool place to play. But like you said, I've only played there as a player, and it's so hot in there in the summertime, and it
It
does suck.
sucks. It sucks.
So speaking about like fans being on top of you and all this type of stuff, like what's the funniest thing a player, coach, or a fan has ever said to you during a game?
So I was reffing the beach, and we called a couple penalties against Toronto, and then it was quiet. Then we called a couple more penalties against Toronto, and the captain comes over, and Glenn had sent him over, and he'd said, "My coach wants to know when he gets a chance to work on his power play." And it's like you couldn't help. You couldn't help. You didn't want to laugh, but you couldn't help but smirk. And he's looking at you with his hands out, like you just wouldn't mind an opportunity here to throw 5-on-4 out for us. But it was just the way the game was going, but it was definitely the one I've never forgotten.
That's great. I couldn't imagine being an official and hear a comment like that and trying to keep a straight face. And
Right. And he didn't say anything egregious. He didn't, it wasn't personal. He just wanted to know when he could have a chance at the power play. And it's like, well, man, I understand, but the other team's just not playing that way at the moment.
that's kind of like a good line too that I might have to use in my coaching with you one day and try to get a good chuckle out of
Absolutely,
you.
yeah. Well, your comment last year still makes me laugh. So you didn't even make it at me. You just could read your lips.
All right. In your opinion, what would you change about the game of lacrosse to benefit the officials and limit the abuse that you guys receive?
I just think more guys have to have patience with young officials. Like everybody makes mistakes. Like don't tell me that you as a coach, as a parent, or a guy at work never made a mistake before. Like I'm sure you would not like being told that you're the worst effing official I've ever seen. Your dog, whatever. Like, it's just not. Who wants to go out there? And I get that we get paid, and a lot of people get, they volunteer for this. They say, well, you guys should volunteer. Let me know a guy who would volunteer to be yelled at for 60 minutes and be told that he's the worst thing going, and I'm going to see you in the parking lot. And some people say some pretty vile things. So I think the teaching aspect in the middle of, before they go out, they get their card, about patience. And we put a lot of penalties in place to stop that kind of abuse. Like, it's always going to be there, but if you can kind of limit it, where we can show the young kids that it's not it's just not as bad as it used to be, I think it would be a big focal point to get people back involved.
Yeah, just kind of like teaching of like respect, or just having more patience with the officials is kind of what you're saying right there.
Absolutely. Just understanding that a young kid out there, he's doing this to make some money. Not everybody has the goals to go to the NLL or Ref Junior. They're just doing this because it's the summer. Their parents want them to make some money. You go and you ref for an hour or two on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you walk away. It's not bad money. You can walk away with $100 in a night, if you really wanted to. And but you get a kid who goes into the rink. They've been at school all day, and then they go into the rink, and their friends are all going to go hang out at the pool, and then they go get absolutely screamed at for an hour, and they go back home and they say, "Well, I quit. This is stupid."
Yeah, no, for sure. So at the end of the day, like, lacrosse is supposed to be fun. It's a sport, but all sports should be fun at the end of the day. When you're an official, who's your favorite partner to be with?
Uh, Crappie, the sheriff, is probably my favorite guy on the floor because he has such a good, deep knowledge of the game, and a lot of the players who are in the leagues that we're in know him. They went to Brock with him. He played for Oakville. A lot of them played there or played against him. So, and some of the things that he gets away with saying to some of the players is, I couldn't say here. There's just no way. But some of the things that he says just you can't help but laugh. And the players kind of look back at him like, really? You just say that? And then he just kind of looks at them like, yeah, I did say it. Like, what are you going to do about it? And then they just walk away because it was pretty clever. So any game I get with him is always an adventure out on the floor, because you're just not quite sure what thing's going to come out of his mouth next.
Oh, that's awesome. Crappie's a great official, and he
He
is where he is
is.
today for certain reasons. And would he be the partner who has the best sense of humor, the official with the best sense of humor?
Yeah, he would have a great one. John Vandergeesen's another one who can come up with things right off the cusp. If you're looking for a guy who doesn't care what he says to a player, a coach, you're looking at Ian Garrison. That guy can say some pretty nasty things, and it's only after a guy has said something pretty offside to him, you've just opened the door for what's going to come in return. So if you can't handle it, then don't bother, because and a lot of guys down in Ottawa where he lives just know that if you're gonna say something vile to him, you're gonna get one return.
Oh yeah, I grew up in Ottawa playing for Nepean, and I always had Ian around, and
Yeah,
he's one of the best officials in the game because he commands respect. I mean,
absolutely.
you guys are humans, and you deserve that respect that everyone should be given in the game. And he's successful. He doesn't take anyone's crap, and I think he's done a good job for himself by doing things like that.
Absolutely. I'd say he's probably the best official in the world at the moment. It took him a while. They passed. Chris Williams and Mark Gardonia were guys who were kind of up there. Foxy, when he was in his prime, they commanded that respect. Guys wanted them on the floor. But I think everything in terms of accolades, like Ian's number one in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. He's got quite the resume, and fans could always check out his video on the NLL.com page to see what it is to be an official and how they prep for games and stuff. It's a pretty cool video to watch. So
Absolutely.
we're gonna end it on this. Do you have any crazy stories from your official days that you like to share with the fans?
One that's probably PG enough is three of us went down to Akwesasne they were playing against Halton Hills in the semifinal, and they'd requested a third guy in the box. And at a point in the game, one of the players for Akwesasne got hurt. There was a fight. The referee took him down. The player got hurt, kind of blew out his knee. and the whole arena was packed, and they wanted blood. So all of a sudden, it was quiet, and then all of a sudden, a line brawl happened, and the goaltender, who's like this, you know, shorter kid from Aquasauce, and he runs in the back door, and this 6'5" white kid, the back of goaltender, comes flying out the front door, and they're fighting, everybody's fighting, and they try to say to me, "Oh no, he was the guy who was in there the whole time." And it's like, you're looking at that and you can't help but laugh. And Brandon Francis is trying to keep the straightest face that it was the same goaltender, and it's like, man, I don't know about this one. Like, I don't think we can settle that. And he says, "No, you're probably right. One's native and one's not." And I'm like, "Man, I didn't say it. I didn't say that at all." He's like, "No, I'm saying it because there's, the more I look at this, the more I can't get away with it."
That's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
sure there's so many other crazy stories like that, but that's a pretty good one right there. So we appreciate you coming on and sharing your time here and trying to help grow the game of lacrosse, and kind of share your view of what it is to be like an official on the floor in lacrosse.
absolutely. Will, it's a great thing you're doing here. It's nice to get a good segment from the refs on, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of guys who are going to look to jump on here as well and tell their own versions of stories and whatnot. So it's really great.
Yeah, appreciate it, Shane. Have a good day.
Yeah,
The
you too, Will.
Sticks and Picks Play Until the Whistle segment is brought to you by Booster Juice Bowmanville, delivering an incredibly delicious, convenient, and nutritious product, perfectly suited for an active lifestyle.